Thanks, Mike. So let's move back to one of our main stories this morning at 8:39. Despite beginning his spending review with pretty dire economic forecasts, the Chancellor did promise billions of pounds to help level up, that's a phrase he used, the economy when he addressed the Commons yesterday.
Nina is at a printing firm in Merseyside. And Nina, morning to you. I mean, you've been talking to people about, obviously, the business there, but also the knock-on effect it has for day-to-day life, spending, you know, general family worries as well.
Yeah, that's right, Nugget. It's not just about those big decisions from Westminster, it's how it trickles down to businesses and beyond that, to individuals, to families. I've been learning all about printing this morning. Sean up there has been teaching me everything there is to know. See here, these are the dipsticks where you check whether or not there's enough ink in the printer. Over here we've got some antimicrobial pure seal. Now this goes on some of their material that makes its way to places like Alder Hey Hospital, because they serve the public and the private sector here. When the wider economy takes a hit, so do they. Let's remind ourselves what we learned in the spending review yesterday about the health of our economy. Well, so far this year we've borrowed nearly £400 billion. That translates to nearly £7,000 for every person in the UK, a lot of money. And so the contraction of the economy, which is expected to be more than 11%, will translate, they think, to more than 2.6 million people out of work by next year. This was the figure that struck me most. In 5 years' time, by 2025, the economy will still be 3% smaller than what it was expected to be at the March budget. There was some space, though, for the Chancellor to invest. He managed to find £4 billion that he'll invest, he says, in levelling up. What does that mean? It means putting money into business systems outside of London and the South East to make things fairer in the North. Do businesses believe in, though? Let's talk today. When you hear that levelling up phrase, what does it mean to you? What does £4 billion mean to us up here?
£4 billion is an awful lot of money, but we need to see something happening. We need to see investment locally, and we need to see it happening. It's a lot of money that you hear that figure, but seeing it in real life, that's what we need to do.
And how it affects your family. Thank you, Dave. And Dave was particularly concerned when he heard yesterday that public sector pay will be frozen. His daughter's a teaching assistant who's worked her socks off all through the summer. She won't see a pay rise for a couple of years. Will has a slightly different take on it, though, don't you? Your business has been doing OK because you've been doing these prints around social distancing, one-way systems. Yeah. When you heard the news yesterday of a public sector pay freeze, your reaction?
It was warranted, I think. I think it was warranted. The country can't go on spending and spending and spending to a point where you just don't have any money left. You've got to pull it back from somewhere. And I think any decision that was going to be made was never going to sit well with the public. But it's a decision that had to be made, and that's the thing.
Not easy, is it?
It's not an easy decision to make, and it's not. I don't think anyone in power, any party, starts to make the same decision. And you know, it just won't sit well with anyone, unfortunately. So it's one of them. You know, we'll have to just suck it up. Did he ever
win yesterday? That's the question, isn't it? Thank you, Will. We were all listening out about whether there would be an announcement that affected small and medium-sized businesses. In particular, our guest Piers Linney, former Dragon, was watching closely. And you work with small businesses. You were listening out for the announcement yesterday. Nothing in particular, although the Chancellor did emphasise, didn't he, the lend and the spend for businesses and for individuals. Did it go far enough?
Well, you've got 5.7 million SMEs in the UK, and it's important they are, they employ 60% of the private sector. That's almost 14 million people. So it's important that they're able to plan, and there's light at the end of the tunnel now. We're not quite sure how long the tunnel is, but you're printing a business there. You need to be able to plan to get into next year. Things are going to take 2 to 5 years to get back to normal. So it's about being able to plan now, make sure that you can build back, keep the people you've already got if possible, and go digital, invest in the future if you can, small amounts of money. But I think that what you've got to understand is it's not going to end when there's a vaccine. There's a potential recession, and some things have changed for good in terms of how you're going to have to reach and serve your customers.
Piers, I'm so sorry, I can't really hear what you're saying very clearly, but I'll ask you something that lots of people will be wondering. Advice for businesses who might be starting up. We know there are big loans available, backed by the government, there's cheap borrowing. Where do you see the future areas of growth as being?
So the key is, and if you can hear me, is the fact that you've got to be able to plan. So what business has not been able to do is plan because you don't know how long this tunnel is. Now there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's a vaccine. You know roughly how long this pandemic is going to last. But there's also going to be a recession. So it's about planning to get into next year, to get into 2022 and beyond. Keep the people you've got. Try and keep your business small. Make those difficult decisions. But it's much easier to build back and keep the people you've got and the talent you've hired than it is to start all over again. And there's 5.7 million businesses. They are the backbone of our economy, and it's important that we all sort of support them and champion them because they're absolutely crucial to our success going forwards.
And finally, Piers, people will hear that figure that we've borrowed almost £600 billion so far this year. We owe now more as a nation than our entire GDP is worth. People will say, stop borrowing, but a bit like in business, do you get to the point where your only option is to continue borrowing?
Well, so it's about growth, isn't it? So the only way out of this is to grow, is to support businesses, make sure if you're in business, you understand your options, your financing options, you're thinking about the future. And really, the only way we get out of this is by working together, and it's about growth.
So thank you very much, Piers Linney, former Dragon and entrepreneur. A mixed reaction to yesterday's announcement, disappointment around that public sector pay freeze. But yes, that £4 billion that will be invested in levelling up the economy, but many saying it doesn't go far enough. And some critics saying those estimates for how much debt we're in are actually way lower than they will be in reality.
Nina, thanks very much. Nina out there for us in Bootle.